Here we go. Yay. And we'll just get started here in just a few minutes. We're just giving Diane a little time to settle in here and get some technical stuff going. Welcome to our meeting, Great Lakes Wildlife Alliance, and we have some special guests, maybe just one. It sounds like Sarah was probably tired and had some other things coming up, and we'll let Diane introduce herself when she's on, and I can kind of give a quick play-by-play of kind of how things are going to work. I hope that everyone can please mute and don't interrupt, and just save your questions for the end. We will have questions at the end, but you know, we're here and this is a good way to start building a relationship. So we'll give her just a couple minutes here and we can do the introduction. Thanks to you guys so much for joining. It's a really good amount of people, so that's awesome. And we are recording this, just so you know. Diane, whenever you are ready.
I'll just come sit by you. We are here, but yeah, we're like I said, Tammy's here in the room with me, and we're getting the video.
Oh, no worries. Take a couple more minutes. Kelly, one of our people that joins every week, wants to show us her new puppy, so we'll have her do that really quick while you guys get it set. Okay, Kelly, where's your puppy? No, maybe not.
We're gonna get nice and cozy here.
Yeah, you're teaming up together on one camera. That's always fun.
Technologically challenged, but
well, first of all, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us. We've always kind of been almost a little bit afraid to reach out in times past, but I think I'm very happy that things went the way that they did on Tuesday, that we don't have to worry that maybe you guys wouldn't have a job or something later. But, you know, we are Great Lakes Wildlife Alliance. We're just a group of non-consumptive users mostly, but we certainly have hunters, we have farmers, we have business owners, we have a really broad coalition. And one of the big things, we all kind of started, and we're all love wolves, been around since the very first wolf hunts started, and kind of have grown into understanding that what we see as problems at the agency are more of like a wolf is a symptom of problems that we're seeing within the agency. And, you know, we have done lots of things, met with the Natural Resource Board, we've gone to the governor, we've done the legislature, and I'm sure, as you can understand, the Natural Resource Board is not exactly fun to work with right now. Or valid in our opinion. So I'm trying not to get too political about it. So this is another way we just want to really build relationships with you guys. And I think you can relate to this. As many people think of the big bad wolf, I feel like that's how many people feel of the DNR, right? The big bad wolf, the DNR, without any faces to the names and what you guys do, and that you are human beings and have a love for wildlife in the natural world. So I want to thank you for coming. You know, obviously you care about wildlife too, like we do. And what we really want to talk about is kind of what do you think we can bring? How can we kind of change the way wildlife's managed from essentially a more traditional standpoint to a more mutualist way that reflects the public's values? So, I mean, we have the examples like hunting and trapping in state parks, right? Like that was outrageous to us in certain places, I'm sure, where there's some limited hunting. But we really want to, a lot of people are just not familiar with all the processes, right? They don't know about coming to meetings. They don't know who we can meet with. They don't know, you know, places of intervention where we might be able to have some voice with you. And, you know, to really establish ourselves as regular citizens coming to these meetings, because it is fair. And I remember Preston Cole saying, Melissa, your people don't show up. And that's fair. And it was fair at the time. So that's really what we're trying to do, is really get people educated and have them come with their values, which are, you know, in our opinion, just as valid as hunters, trappers, and fishermen. And many of us are multiple of those things, but certainly it's better now with Governor Evers, I will say, at the agency. I'm sure some of you are probably have a little bit better job satisfaction. I don't want to get too political, but obviously we've seen a real overhaul in the last, with the Walker administration and how those things go, how endangered resources are being managed now. So I think I'll stop there and let us find out who you are and what you do. And you know, maybe we can, I think we have too many people to do a big round of introductions, but maybe at the end when people ask questions, how can we help you and how can you help us, I guess? And, you know, if you can tell us a little about you, and I'm nervous. I never get nervous and I'm nervous. So I'm going to mute myself and I'll let you guys take the stage. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We're really happy to be here, and maybe we'll just first start with introduction before we kind of get into what we wanted to share with you today. So I'm Tammy Ryan. I'm one of the Deputy Division Administrators within the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Division.
Yeah, I'm Diane Russo. I am the other Deputy Division Administrator in Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. If you're aware with the way our division works, we have 6 programs, and on the programs that I oversee would be the State Parks Program, the Natural Heritage Conservation Program, and the Office of Business Services.
And the programs that I oversee are the Wildlife Management, Fisheries Management, and our Office of Applied Science, which is essentially our research arm. And so, yeah, together those 6 programs make up our Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Division. So we wanted to first start off by congratulating you on your 10th anniversary. I understand this is I think maybe you're coming to a conclusion here on a series of conversations, right? And so that's pretty cool, especially for a grassroots organization. We just wanted to first, start with that. And we're really happy to be here to help you celebrate this significant milestone. We also have a few thoughts to share in response to your invitation and the interest that you shared within there. So essentially there's like a form that comes in when requests like this are made. And so we really looked at that closely and wanted to make sure that we hit on those points of interest that you had asked us to touch on. So we do have a few thoughts to share to kind of kick off this fireside chat. I don't know where the fire is, though. Hopefully some of you are sitting by one, but we're not. But we certainly, want this to be an informal kind of conversation. We did not prepare a formal presentation. There's no PowerPoint here for you today. We just really would value more of an informal conversation and hearing from you and just kind of having, a two-way conversation. But we are going to take a little bit of time here again, just to hit on some of your points of interest. So one of the first things you had asked in your request for us to come tonight was to address the importance of the public attending our meetings, essentially our public meetings. And, that's really key and integral to our decision-making processes. We really find that to be like super important. When we offer those types of public processes, we always seek to accommodate the interest now, always a 3-year time frame, right, since the pandemic. But, we do seek to accommodate all interests. So if you want to attend a meeting in person, you can. And if you want to participate virtually, you can. So that's one thing that the pandemic really taught us, is that a virtual format is really important. And that is it has shown greater participation and also a broader diversity of participation through that virtual forum. So that's a really valuable thing. So we value hearing from all perspectives. We feel that that's a key strength in our decision-making process. Thinking about this and some examples that we can share, specifically, like we have standing wildlife advisory committees, right? And these wildlife advisory committees include a diverse set of stakeholders. So it's not just consumptive interests, it's also the non-consumptive interests. And you can go on our website to essentially see who the members of those committees are. And there might be a group, an organization on there that kind of aligns with your interests or your values, that you could reach out to those individuals, those members, and kind of get to know them and maybe, get your insights and values kind of conveyed, through those people. And we'd also be happy, to add your group, the Great Lakes Wildlife Alliance, to any of our distribution lists that we have. As well as hearing from your group at any time about the work that we do.
Yeah, thanks, Tammy. You had also expressed an interest in funding opportunities. And this is one thing, again, when we reach a point here to have more of a conversation, really interested in maybe you're offering us money. Are you giving us funding opportunities, or are you looking for money? So
easy, ladies, that comes at the end.
Yeah. So definitely look forward to, again, having a little bit more of a conversation about the funding opportunities piece. But we certainly engage with partners, you know, as any opportunities come up, as they present themselves. There's been some recent federal funding that's come through, you know, with the bill and the America the Beautiful Challenge grant. So we're always open to seeing what type of funding is out there. And oftentimes these applications for these types of funding are going to be more successful when we are able to partner with others, when we've got a broader base of folks or entities that will benefit from the funding. So definitely always looking for opportunities to partner in that respect on funding. Again, I know that specific to the natural heritage conservation on our side, and certainly throughout our division, we do have a focus on rare species side of things. Much of that is dependent on federal grants and gifts. Those are some of the key funding sources, again, for the rare species side of things, but so much work as well done by our LTEs, our contractors, and any number of grant sources that are coming in. I was talking with Drew, saying, you know, really, we might have up to 50 some different grant opportunities going on at any one time. So we're always seeing, you know, what types of funding are out there, how we can get matching. So definitely it's something that we can further conversations on that. We also have the landowner incentive program. Again, that is focused primarily in the southwest part of the state. It is mostly federally funded, and it is, again, limited in geographic scope to the southwest part of the state. But another example of ways that we're always looking to partner and looking for what available funding sources are out there. And lastly, I wanted to just touch on another really strong partnership that we have for our funding opportunities is with the Natural Resources Foundation. They provide our agency with funding for all types of wildlife diversity projects. So definitely something that we could explore with you as well. Again, we're going through the Cherished Endowment Fund applications right now. We had a number of applications that came in totaling over $120,000. So definitely something that we can explore with you also in conversations. And sorry if you see us both looking at the screen. I see something pop up in the chat. So since this is informal, if you don't mind, we'll try to take a look at it. Percentage of allocation.
Sure. Diane, I guess one question that we have, I guess we'll kind of just dive into it here is, and I think why we wanted to have a conversation about this is, for us, like most people, the Pittman Robertson funds, 75% of those people aren't hunters. And for a lot of us, you know, is to try to find a funding source for non-game conservation, but even more specifically for game conservation that isn't tied to the sale of hunting and fishing licenses. So that's always been a just kind of, I guess I'm jumping right in there, kind of our struggle in that, you know, taxation without representation, right? So that is sort of how we feel that in a lot of these partnerships and things like that, that there isn't sort of a general fund that isn't narrowed to special interests of hunters, of groups of hunters. Not that we don't think hunters don't contribute in conservation, but we know the numbers are dropping, and then the agency's reinvesting in recruitment when you have all of these people on this call that want to just throw our money at you. But, you know, for us, we do feel that, you know, we want to partner, we want to do these things, but we want a voice. And I think that's, you know, that's kind of the difficult part of the conversation. So I'm just wondering if maybe you could touch on that. And then I'm happy to just, we can just make it very informal if anyone wants to just kind of talk about, I mean, I know this is obviously a long conversation and probably a conversation that we should have been having a long time ago, but you know, that is kind of how it is. But, you know, for wildlife managers to us don't feel like they're following the social trends or the public because they've got this strong vocal minority. And so when we see like the funding of conservation, it seems these groups are adamant that we don't join, right? Like we tried to pass a bill to tax non-weapon and fishing equipment to give more money to conservation, and nope, no way, weren't going to have it. We tried to pass a wildlife stamp, no way. So we feel like we're being blocked by giving because our interests are different than hunting, trapping, and fishing. I think I'm also reading off some of the questions were all very much the same that people emailed in, like how can we participate and be represented, I think. Thank you. I know, tough. Sorry.
Well, especially when you've expressed some examples, some of the things that you've tried are fantastic, and the fact that the outcome was that, you know, what it was is unfortunate. And I don't know if it's a matter of just keep trying, or if it's, you know, a matter of trying different legislators, you know, or, you know, and also, you know, a lot of it is, and we talk about this too as an agency, I mean, you really need to build a relationship with the legislature, you know, a legislator, in order to ultimately get a partnership where they might actually, you know, support your idea. And so that's a really important part of the process versus, you know, just a kind of a cold call. Hey, we want you to do this. Will you do this for us? You know, when they might not know you as an entity or know you personally, and going out for a cup of coffee or, you know, whatever, that kind of like relationship building is really important with those legislators. So that, you know, might be, maybe you've tried that. I don't know, but that's where my mind goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, thankful for, you know, providing those couple examples, and it made me think of some work that we've been talking about here this week, even the approach that we're taking regarding relevancy and just remaining relevant, as you noted, if looking at trends of numbers and whatnot, and what can we even do as an agency to remain relevant. So I think we're having some of the same conversations. So anytime that you could even partner with the work that the Great Lakes Wildlife Alliances, and say you're partnering with other groups that have that similar interest, and having a seat at the table where you start building your coalitions with people that have a similar thing. It might be a different organization, but would have a similar interest in the long haul.
Yeah, and like maybe your bill efforts, if they were truly just originating from your alliance, if you had other entities that might join you in that effort again, and, you know, often the saying, try again, or try a different approach, you know, and so maybe it's just a matter of broadening that base and showing a stronger public interest and representation in those requests, or that advocacy, I guess I would say.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I'll try to circle back for my one question towards the end, but I think I'll just kind of let our participants talk. Walter, if you want to unmute, I know that you wrote your question in the chat, but if you want to ask it, it says, what was the percentage allocation? Oh, go ahead, Walter. Thank you.
Well, my question really is, how does a department allocate? Many states have identified species of greatest conservation concern, and yet it appears, at least from several examples, that the resources are not allocated to the species of greatest conservation need, but are focused on the species that are license related. And so my question really is, how does any agency address the question of the allocation of resources to species that are in danger of survival versus species that are used to serve a special interest group?
Grant dollars, a lot of federal grant dollars. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, also being aware of the funding integrity. That's something that we've got to be very true to the purpose of the funding that we get. And again, whether we've got this range of money sources that are coming in, they typically have some type of language associated with what a primary purpose is. So, you know, again, if keeping that in mind, but again, keeping in gifts, donations, grants, you know, federal dollars that we get, I would say that plays in as well on how we're allocating money. Which again, I think as far as the rare species, I know that's one thing all of us have been closely watching RAWA and thinking of that as a potential funding source. Still, fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I still wonder, in terms of your division of resources, can you offer us an idea of how much of the agency resources is going to game species versus non-game species?
Well, we have, and maybe this is where you were gonna go to, Diane, but where my mind is going to right away is our federal funds, our SFR dollars, so sport fish restoration dollars, and then the Pittman-Robertson dollars. Those essentially get allocated amongst all of our programs, and also the division of, they changed their name. It used to be law enforcement. They're public
Service and Resource Protection.
Thank you.
PSRP.
Yes, it just doesn't roll off the tongue. But, and so they get funding too for outreach education, some of their recruitment, retention, and reactivation, efforts for hunting and fishing. And then, so it includes the wildlife program, the fisheries program, our parks program gets dollars for their work on their habitat management and boat accesses, for example. Let's see, the Office of Applied Science gets funding for research. So it's a really, it's a very high level answer, but we have staff that have full-time jobs dedicated to allocating and tracking the expenditures of those resources. So we work closely with them, but it's not like our day-to-day, right? So yeah, I guess that's maybe what I'm saying is that's probably the best that I can offer without getting into the specifics. But it is true that the Natural Heritage Conservation Program, which is the program that really is focused in on the non-game biodiversity, very important roles and responsibilities, they don't get a big piece of that pie. And so they have to get funding elsewhere, through federal grants and federal dollars and federal grants. And this ROB, the Restoring America's Wildlife Act that's out there and still pending and hopefully will pass our nation's legislature. We're really sitting eagerly on the edge of our seats because we see so much need and are very much shovel ready in many regards to spend those federal dollars. And so when it comes to your group and advocacy, and one of the questions that you asked about this meeting today is what can we do? Certainly advocating on the federal front as well. Advocating for RAWA would go a really long way to help support that legislation getting passed, because that's really, really what we need. And that's very, as Diane said, the funding integrity. So it really comes down to the language and the authorization of the funds that we get and what it is that we can spend them on. So that's why the dollars are so kind of unbalanced that way. And the RAWA dollars are very specific to species of greatest conservation needs, so that we have a lot of hope for the future with the passage of RAWA.
Okay, thanks, you guys. I guess expanding on that, it's a question I don't know if a woman named Linda is on that had asked. I think is really good. How is the agency preparing for the passage of RAWA, the Recovering America's Wildlife Act? I know we've talked about that on previous things, and how the matching funds will need to be provided, because that's one way we thought, well, okay, but and I know that being bipartisan, I looked at the list of people on there, and sorry, like Safari Club International, those guys are problematic for us, NRA affiliates. I know it's supposed to be a 10th anniversary party and I'm just putting you through the ringer, but I'm just asking the questions, and I think this is a good starting point. But how much matching funds we would need to provide, where that money will come from, and how many non-game biologists do you anticipate then needing to hire and staff to implement the Recovering America's Wildlife Act? I didn't ask it, so don't blame me.
Great questions, and certainly not all at the tip of our tongues, though.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know that we're to the point of deciding how many biologists and position numbers or whatnot, but certainly as a division, we're being very proactive and optimistic that this will get passed. Again, as we mentioned, the programs that are in our division, this still will also include other programs as well. But as a Fish, Wildlife, and Parks division, we are working closely with all of our programs. We're looking at the Wildlife Action Plan. We're going to need to figure out how we're going to prioritize these funds so that we are ready to go with projects if and when this does get funded. I would say we do anticipate, looking at potential for positions, whether that money can be used for land acquisition. So I think we're just trying to think of what are those opportunities. Again, going back to the language in RAWA, what will be eligible expenses. And I think the match question, the matching funds, that's going to be a big question that we're all trying to follow. And where do we come up with money that can match this potential money that's out there? How do we come up with money?
Because I don't think going to be easy, unfortunately, with the state legislature.
Yeah.
We just are anticipating that it's going to be problematic to come up with some of those matching funds unless that money kind of goes to the same old status quo old club and using what we call the trickle down conservation, where is Pheasants Forever going to use the money and buy more things to shoot pheasants and think that's going to affect the non-game and endangered species? We don't know. So the second part of that is, do you anticipate like an oversight committee where partners could like we served on the Wolf Management Plan Committee, for example? Do you anticipate setting something like that up with different interests?
Sorry, I'm just taking some
Well,
notes here,
that has not been identified.
Okay.
At least not to this point. That's an interesting thought, something that we could certainly consider, which kind of triggers another thought for me and like, what are we doing to be ready?
Always.
At least within our division, we're anticipating that a lot of the funding would come to our programs. And so we have been engaging with our leadership team on a conversation. We're actually going through a facilitated process with using structured decision-making, which may be familiar to some of you, especially if you worked with NHC on other matters, like specifically, I know, it was used for bat conservation and white nose syndrome, for example. So we are, working towards that preparedness in our division through that structured decision-making process. We're also anticipating, and this is a very common theme across the nation, is that we're going to need staff to coordinate the funds. So some type of a coordinator position is something that we're likely going to want to hire. But as far as that oversight committee goes, we can keep that in mind as we continue through our structured decision-making exercise.
Great. I think it would be really awesome to have non-consumptive representation on that. Vital, frankly. All right, I'll shut up now. That was that. I don't know if that person's on the call. Do other people have questions? You can just kind of chime in. It's a conversation. Sorry, we're hitting you with hard questions right away. But
no, we know you're a very passionate group and have some great ideas. So we're totally fine with that.
Great. Okay. I think somebody unmuted. Is it Don?
Yeah.
Or Diane?
I just had
Don, then Diane, please. Sorry.
You first,
I
Don.
just had a question, which maybe I should know the answer to, but as far as, this is not a funding question, but more of the logistics. I keep thinking back about the state parks and how, hunting is allowed in some. Is that a legislated or is that a DNR decision? And how do they decide which area is going to open to hunting? As far as state land or state park, I should say, not state land.
No, that's it. Yeah. So it was
legislative and then approved by the board. Yeah.
Sorry, you're giving us these questions.
Yeah, I can help with that one too. It is Act 169. That I think forced the hand of the DNR. They've always allowed some limited hunting. I'm just telling you this, and then you can expand just because I know I know all about Act 169. Frankly, the Republican legislation, although some Democrats signed on and forced the DNR's hand to open properties. with some very limited exceptions, but force the opening, even I think, and I remember, I don't think, Diane, I think you were there. But, you know, where the DNR, I think pretty much was on our side and wanted them to be able to have the integrity to decide where and when. And that was forced out of their hands. Maybe I'm wrong, but go ahead, ladies, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't know which Diane, if you were talking about me,
Oh,
Diane, or Diane.
Oh,
King,
yeah, no, I guess you can, if you want to follow up on Don's question there, I think that was pretty much forced out of your hands, from what I understand.
I would say so. I do recall sitting in some of those board meetings. I
Yeah.
was not in this current position. I was at the DNR, but not in this position. And I do recall being at the board meeting and as a listening, but not as presenting that particular item. And yeah, you're correct. That did come before our Natural Resources Board.
I was in a different position then, and a completely like different focus. I remember the conversations, but the details aren't really my forte.
Just knock your head against the wall. That's all. That's how it was. Okay, Diane Kane.
Yeah, well, my question, and I jumped in late because I'm babysitting, but my question really it is a federal question, I believe, and RAWA is certainly a federal issue too. I guess so. So my question is, most of the wildlife is on private lands, and yet the farmers really don't receive any type of funding or monetary help with coexistence for our wildlife. I feel as though there should be some federal help with this, in addition to RAWA, in addition to wildlife services in the state of Wisconsin and throughout this nation. I feel like there should be some federal funding. I think it could be, we need legislation, we need it to be passed so that across this country, landowners, property owners, people who try to coexist with wildlife become compensated in some way for maybe for cost sharing on compost bins, carcass compost bins, maybe even poultry for their chickens, maybe lambing type sheds, maybe a whole host of things to help farmers coexist with our predators. As it is, farmers and livestock owners are expected to bear the brunt of all of this. And sure, if their animals get killed by coyotes or some other predator, sure, they're compensated, but they're not given any funding to prevent this. If you live in the country, you know that predators are habituated to certain sites. If you leave your chickens out every night, the owl's going to know that, and he's going to go after it. The same with any animal, any livestock that's left out, that's left without proper fencing or without proper means to deter them. We need a way of prevention. We need farmers to be compensated for this. Most of our wildlife lives where farmers are living and trying to coexist with wildlife. Farmers need help with this. There is in every county throughout this country, agency called Farm Service Agency. I don't see any reason why the Farm Service Agency has like 27 different programs which help farmers in every aspect. There's nothing to help farmers with funding to prevent predators. I have talked to many legislators about this. I've authored a resolution to the Wisconsin Conservation Congress that suggested this. It was passed in 24 counties in the state of Wisconsin overwhelmingly, was presented in 24 of our 72 counties, and passed in all 24 overwhelmingly. Clear evidence that even hunters, even farmers, everybody believes that there should be some sort of funding to help. As it is, there's nothing to prevent. So I can't get, if I decide that I want, if I buy a calf and I decide I want to protect it, I can't just on my own get some funding for fox lights or rag boxes or that type of, or flaggery to deter the predators. I'm on my own. I'm expected to incur the expenses. Sure, Wildlife Service will jump in if my calf is killed, and then it'll help me maybe with the next calf, but it's not going to help me. It's not going to give me any funding. I want some funding to prevent this. If you prevent it from ever happening, if you prevent them from becoming habituated, if you keep enough prey animals, if you don't kill every rabbit, every squirrel, every deer, and you have enough access to prey animals, these predators will leave wildlife alone. We need education. We need some sort of mechanisms to help our farmers. The mechanisms are there. They're present in every county in this nation. We could help Mexican wolves. We could help red wolves. We could help animals throughout this country. We could help.
Diane, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm gonna just stop you there and give them a chance to just kind of answer, if that's okay.
Yep, I know. I was kind of on a
You're
tangent.
passionate. It happens. I talk all the time.
Thank you for reining me in a little. I needed that.
Yeah, that's a really, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. And it's a really tough, it definitely sounds to me like you may be a farmer yourself. And certainly it can appreciate the challenges that you're describing. You know, as far as, you know, we certainly do have a program here, but like, you know, that's federally funded. And the contract that we have with Wildlife Services to help farmers, but you're right, it's more about, you know, the reaction and not the proaction. And so I hear what you're saying, and certainly, you know, advocating for federal assistance, federal legislation, you know, certainly that's something that your alliance could do. We typically don't, you know, when it comes to when you want legislative changes of interest, really working with your legislators or the senators in our state are really probably your best avenue for that. But certainly, I really do appreciate you sharing your experiences and your thoughts, because it really helps to hear those kind of personal testimonials. And especially, you know, I mean, it's not that we're not engaged in these conversations. It's just that we're not, we don't have a whole lot of influence when it comes to federal legislation.
Mm-hmm. Right. I understand that. Yeah, just, you know, I think just starting, I mean, I have to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, who knows? I mean, this kind of conversation too, like, you know, we might find ourselves, I mean, Diane and I are both engaged on both a regional and federal level. You know, with our colleagues and other natural resource agencies, there's certainly conflict management working groups that work on these types of things. You know, if and when there's an opportunity to share what we hear, we do and we will. And so this kind of, you know, interaction is really helpful for that. And, but also if ever, you know, there's an opportunity where they're like, hey, you know, you guys got some ideas for some federal legislation, you know, and we certainly could offer, you know, an idea. So please know that, you know, these comments don't get lost on us. It's just, it's not an easy next step.
I know that, and I appreciate you listening. And yes, Melissa was right for reining me in a little. I was off on a little tangent there. So
no problem.
We did just get another question by someone who doesn't want to come on. That's the and then they're at work, but and I think it's a good question, albeit difficult. I'll just read it to you. I'd like the elephant to be brought up in the room, Pren, and the possibility that there could be 4 squatters on the board come May. We know it's not your thing, but it's hurting the DNR's image with the public. I agree there. There's a part 2. Maybe mention how Pren and Kat's hostility further erodes our faith in the DNR, and their behavior regarding wolves was appalling. We shouldn't have to go to court to do the right thing, although we won, so that's fine. But also, you know, just kind of the stonewalling from the Conservation Congress, and how do we, I mean, I think that's another big reason we're coming to you, is that the routes of giving public participation feel closed to us. They just do. So I know you, I don't, maybe we can't expect you to give an answer, but there is a big lack of trust with with hunters too, probably, but definitely with the non-consumptive public when you have people like Pren and Kazimierski, and the fact that they won't leave. What do we do? I think that's a good question. Thank you, Paul, who asked that question.
Well, nothing lasts forever, so stick with it.
Feels like it.
Unfortunately, the politics, it's a slow changing thing, but it does change over time. And so I would just really encourage you to continue to use the avenues that you do have. Coming to the Natural Resources Board, providing your testimonies, weighing in on our decision-making items, providing any written comments, and also, participating in the Wisconsin Conservation Congress and, attending those meetings and making your voices heard, run for election. Ultimately, there is this, as Diane mentioned this earlier, there's this desire to be relevant into the future, not just for us as a division or as an agency, but also most recently with the Wisconsin Conservation Congress. So we actually met with their executive council earlier this year to talk about kind of a partnership and relevancy going forward together. We could both benefit, both bodies, could benefit from broadening our constituency base to, beyond the traditional or beyond what the norm has been to this point. So I just think that was something important to share too in response to that question.
Great, I think that's excellent. And then there's a second question about how the executive committee at Wisconsin Conservation Congress shuts out anything pro-wildlife. And they just do. I know we have a couple of the few more pro-wildlife conservation Congress members here, but once they go to that committee, they're just shut out. And no matter how it feels, no matter how rational or scientific a resolution is, can you talk about maybe how is that weighted and what do we do? Who do we tell when we're shut out of that process making? I mean, even the executive committee doesn't even represent Milwaukee County, where most of the hunting licenses are bought. So that I think is really difficult for us when, just like the Natural Resource Board, we just feel stonewalled in so many of these processes. And I think because the traditionalists and the status quo know that things are changing. That's my feeling, that it's a good sign, but I'm positive and it's gross. But I think we do get some just so much blowback that it really does shut the public down at times. Thanks.
So specifically their executive council. We're not talking spring hearing, you're talking the executive council.
Right.
Okay. Well, my first thought, and Diane, I don't know if you had the same one, but we do have a liaison to the Conservation Congress. And so I think letting our liaison know when you're feeling that you're not being heard or that the process isn't fair, I think that really is the next, that's their role. Right. And so if you know who that is, I'll share it because not everybody does not know as Kari Lee Zimmerman.
Sure.
And so, and she's been working with the Congress now for, I don't know, 5 years or so. Yeah. And so she's really good at her job, what she does. And so, please don't hesitate to reach out to Kari.
Perfect.
One thing I would also add is something that ties into a point that we made earlier about finding other groups that have that same feeling that you have about being on the outs, and you might be coming at this from slightly different angles or interests, but if you find some other folks that also have more of the non-consumptive approach that also want a voice, broadening your constituent base,
Sure.
And in commonality with some of these other groups, I think might, build that strength when you do bring something forward.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have questions? I think I'm done with the email questions, so we're good there. Do you have any questions?
I just see stuff coming in the chat. Are you monitoring?
Oh,
that too?
okay. It looks like something, it's not really a question. I think it's a
It's
statement.
a comment of a
Uh,
horse that was unfortunately injured during bow hunting.
Oh, jeez. Oh, okay.
Yeah, about a horse that was shot during deer hunting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess if no one's gonna chime in here, I want to use your time as valuable as we can. I did actually have a good conversation with Ton Ames, who I love. And we talked about maybe like, that there are opportunities within the agency, especially when we feel like we can't make progress outside because of politics. And one thing that we have noticed is we've got the Go Wild, right? It's so easy. It's so easy to use. But for those who buy a state trail pass, or we tried to get the kayak and canoe licenses, we tried to give you guys money, so don't blame me. But about maybe so for example, when they sent out the social survey on wolves, right, and it went in our favor, like we knew that it would, but still those were sent to only DNR customers, which that's a whole nother, maybe we'll have time for that conversation. But the public this isn't a business, we're not customers. But they were sent out, like social surveys about wildlife and about our parks are sent out to people with customer numbers. But a lot of us don't receive a customer number. Now, I happen to have a hunting licenses, so I get things. But I think there's a big section of the public that don't know what's going on just based on those lists. Is that something where maybe we could integrate if we bought state trail passes or state park stickers or even any of that we could also be assigned that same kind of customer number that a hunter, fisher, or trapper might get, so that when you are sending out, how did I do on my job today, 1 through 5 or whatever, those things that's another way I think we can participate. Because I'm a sociologist, so I realize that I get it, but those results are skewed because of where a lot of these surveys and wildlife management decisions go to customers, and the agency, we feel, thinks that hunters, trappers, and fishermen are more important customers. And so I think that I'm just telling you what I hear and what we feel. But is that something maybe that we could do without requiring legislation? Like, where are those opportunities?
Yeah, we've been talking about having some kind of a way for someone. So what you thought of the state trail pass, for example, that's an interesting thought, or a state park sticker, right? Can we give them a customer ID number that way? And I think Diane probably has something to share there. But I also know that we're talking about considering providing some kind of a non-consumptive option, and it just to get registered, basically, so that we have that way to communicate. So yeah, that is something that we've been talking about. And then I also just wanted to share too, in regards to the surveys. A lot of times surveys also use our Gov delivery addresses. So it's not just a customer ID number. You can sign up for Gov delivery. And we have a very expansive list of Gov delivery options. So you could look through there and find your interest and sign up for anything, and you'll get if we created a survey. if we created a survey that hits on any of those Gov delivery topics, they always include those Gov deliveries too.
Oh,
so it's something for you to
I'll
do.
look that up.
Diane, what did you want to share about the concept of the customer ID number?
Oh, well, first I was going to also say with the GovD, there are other ways to receive information. So maybe we can be sure to exhaust those possibilities of checking the box to receive whichever things seem most important to you. But we're always looking at ways, again, with the state parks. Clearly, they've always been quite popular, but even during COVID have been record breaking. But any ways that we're able to reach people by using the parks that are coming through, looking at ways to change how you're entering parks. Is that what you mean, like with the license plate reader? Yeah. All right. So yeah, we're looking at all different types of ways to tie in getting people information when you do make these purchases. Looking, talking to various vendors. Is somebody else in another state doing something better that if we know what we're trying to address, the problem we're trying to solve would be like getting information non-hunters and non-anglers, that's a good thing to add to our list of things that we're also trying to accomplish as we're improving the way that you buy a state trail pass or you buy a state park sticker.
Great, thank you. I did put the subscriber where you can go in and subscribe with the DNR in the chat for everyone so that they can go ahead and just do that right now. So that then there's no more I didn't know.
Thank you very much.
Do other people have questions? Others? Maybe we'll get done early. It's pouring rain here. Is it pouring rain where you guys are?
It's dark. I don't know.
Cat got scared and jumped on me. It's just pouring rain. Well, I really want to thank you for this opportunity, and hopefully we can do meetings like this again, maybe even smaller. I know people were very interested about this. I think just a little stage fright, and that's okay. I understand that too. But we can let you ladies go. We're going to discuss the wolf management plan after you after you hang up. No, but to go over that, and I guess that was the last question someone had, which you might not even know the details of, and I do know some, but they are concerned. Can the DNR approve? Oh, let me reread it. Can the DNR approve the new wolf management plan without needing the Natural Resources Board?
No, it's a Natural Resources Board decision item.
They have to. So they're just wondering, you can't circumvent that decision.
No, it's very explicitly delineated that we must do that. So.
And is that their second question is that by law?
Well, I know it's in code, so yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, well, that's gonna be fun. We'll see you there.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
all right, well,
we have our contact information, so feel free to reach out anytime.
yes, and we do want to thank you for the work we do. We know that it's hard, and I'm sure you feel pulled for both sides, but we do appreciate you being here. And I think if we all just kind of go back to common ground, that we all want fair and ethical wildlife management and protecting our natural resources, I think we can make a lot of progress.
Yeah, great.
All right, thank you so much, ladies.
Another question of you.
Oh yeah, any other questions?
In the, well, this is just more of a housekeeping one.
Oh, sure.
In the invite, it said that media was invited. I'm just curious if there is media.
I don't think they
to
came.
let our folks know. Okay.
Yeah, he didn't come, but I think we are going to do a wildlife day at the Capitol, and certainly we'll invite you to that too when that comes up.
Okay, great. Yeah, I
Thanks,
appreciate
everyone.
the opportunity to be here and talk with you tonight.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks
thanks
for
for staying late.
opportunity.
You must have had long days this week, so I
No
really
problem.
appreciate
Happy
it.
to do it.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye-bye. Oh, it's not valid. I'll figure it out then. All right, everyone else, you can go now. I thought that was a productive meeting. I'd like to hear your feedback now that the big scary guys aren't here anymore. Tell me what you thought. Anybody can chime in.
I felt listened to.
I felt listened to.
I think it's really interesting how much their hands are tied.
Yeah.
They're the messenger. Unfortunate for them in many ways, but they also do advocate for the hunters and the trappers and the fishers. So their hands are not quite as lily white as they might want you to realize. But
Sure.
I think your ideas, Melissa, for getting input from the non-license holders through the trail pass and the state park stickers is excellent.
Well, I'm just trying to think of things we can do when we know after the election results, the legislature is, forget it, guys, it's just going to die in committee.
Well,
I mean, we can do it, but it'll probably fold. And we know the Natural Resource Board, they're just going to sit. I am worried that they're all going to sit come May. But
Right.
what I do feel like it's really difficult. So maybe at least the governor appoints, those two ladies are appointed by Governor Evers. So maybe by building this relationship, we might have an in on things that maybe we can get around code, or we can get around the legislature to make some small implemental changes while we wait. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but it also highlighted that we're not currently being solicited for
Right. I did
these
think
surveys.
it was positive. I thought it was positive, Peggy, when she said, we know we're irrelevant. I thought that was a brave
right?
thing for them to say, like, we're worried
Well,
about our
when-
relevancy. Well, they should be.
When you disenfranchise
Right,
80% of your constituents, if not more,
right.
and cater to out of state, then yeah, hello.
Yeah.
It is good to know that they're aware of that.
Others, Karen, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to, talking with Paul, well, not talking with him, emailing, going up and about this thing with Preen,
Sure.
being a squatter and all the rest of these that are all going to be losing their seats.
Yeah.
Oh,
If they go.
Well, and that's the thing. Is there a way now, like Paul said, is there a way that we can contact Evers and call and force them to leave those? Because they are terminated. Those seats are terminated.
Right. I wish that was true. I mean, we sued, I'm sorry, I'm having a little mind blink right now. Midwest Environmental Advocates, sorry. They also sued, and the Supreme Court found that they could stay. So I don't.
Okay, but then again, there was another thing. There is an open seat for Supreme coming up.
Yeah.
So that could be another good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Where there's a will, there's a way, guys. Don't be too discouraged, but
Yeah, there's Paul. See, he's talking
yeah.
about it.
Yep. And that's what he said. All of the appointees will expire in May. That means that 4 could continue to squat. And then the other thing is that by law, the legislature has to have like a confirmation hearing on their selections. That's what happened, right? The legislature wouldn't hold a hearing for Evers appointees. So
Right.
I don't know what will happen. This is what I mean. It's just also unprecedented that I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what answer to give you because nobody knows what's going on. Like,
Right, I'm just
Evers
saying,
doesn't know
I
what's
wonder
going on.
if there's someone someone would be able to contact,
Yeah.
contacts are there to bring it up now that the election's over, now that we know to start it now, before all these come to term in May.
Yeah, and I actually have that in, I didn't get a chance to bring it out with these ladies because it's not really their cup of tea, but I think I think that's a really great idea. Excellent idea, Karen. And I think maybe we should start writing letters and recommendations to the governor now of who we want to see on that committee. Now, whether they'll get a hearing and get on the committee is a whole nother, just a whole nother thing, but I don't think it's important. I think, reminding the governor that you as a voter, that qualified people with diverse viewpoints need to be.
Well, right, because you can't get through the legislature. It's so sickening. It's like you can't do anything.
Right.
So now we have in a little way to say, okay, we voted you in again. Now and let's get some work. You know what I mean?
I think that's a great idea. I've got it down. I've got it on my list. Are there other people who have thoughts? I'm just, we only got just a couple minutes left here and I don't want to keep you all night. Anybody else have thoughts? Go ahead, Lois. Lois, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Sure can.
My question is, can we talk with Governor Evers about the kind of appointments he is making on the Natural Resources Board? In other words, specifically non-consumptive, rather than someone who, is a trapper coach, which he appointed.
Right.
But instead, without making a big deal out of it, but still,